Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Mindset Mondays. What I want to talk about today hits home with me really hard, not only because of my personal experiences, but the experiences of one of my family members and also a lot of my friends. So what I want to talk to you about today is veterans and the difficulties that we have reintegrating into society as it is, and how we can all help each other better, and how veterans can help themselves better. Because there's a lot of issues that we all have in common when we get out that kind of play a large role in whether or not we end up finding a place in a society that's totally chaotic compared to the profession that we just got out of. So a lot of you might not know this, but I was an Army Ranger, my brother was an Army Ranger. I have a lot of friends that are still Rangers, some that are out. I have friends that are Marines, I have friends that are former Marines, former Air Force, still in the Air Force. Just about everything you can think of, from Navy SEALs to basic infantry unit. But the thing that's most common that I find with everybody when they get out, regardless of whether or not they were special operations or they could have been working at a desk during their time in service, is that when we get out, we have a lot of trouble figuring out where we fit in society. And that's a really common theme, because there's not really a great system to help veterans when they get out transition into a world that's completely different compared to what we were experiencing during our 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years in service. And that's a big problem. That's why you see numbers that don't get talked about enough, where it's 22 veterans a day are committing suicide. That's a huge issue. That's a societal issue. That's a systemic issue. But most people turn a blind eye to it, or most people think they can't help. And here's the thing, you can help. Not only can you help veterans or your fellow veterans, but veterans, you can help yourselves too. One of the biggest issues when you get out with not knowing where you fit in is you've been used to having your job clearly defined every day. You know that you can rely on the person to your right and the person on your left to do their job, and know that you're going to be able to focus on your job and help the team, whatever size unit that is, whether it's a squad, a platoon, or an entire company. Whatever your job is, the vast majority of the time, you can rely on everybody to do their jobs. And there's punishment, there's repercussions for when people are dishonest or they do something that negatively impacts the team. Sometimes it's life and death, sometimes it's organization when it comes to training, but that world is way different. But you get used to that and that structure and those clearly defined boundaries. But when veterans get out, we don't have those clearly defined boundaries. My first few years out, I was seriously depressed, angry, confused, and frustrated, because I didn't know who I could count on anymore. I wasn't holding myself to the standard anymore. There wasn't that system of accountability, that system of trust, where I had to do the right thing. So I came back out into the regular world, where you can get away with not doing the right thing all the time and still live. You can still generate an income, you could still go out and have fun. But eventually, if you're not doing the right thing, you know it, you recognize it, and you get really unhappy with yourself. And that's an issue that I fell into. I was drinking a lot, I was just lying a lot, I was just generally not being who I wanted to be. Where when I was in, I was exactly who I wanted to be, and I was with exactly who I wanted to be with. But I slipped out of that. I didn't have people holding me accountable, and I wasn't holding myself accountable, and the people I surrounded myself with weren't holding me accountable. And a lot of other veterans fall into that, and we go down that slippery slope of negativity and depression, because we think we have our friends, but we were living a different life for 3 or 4 years. I was living in Georgia, and I came back to California. The world had moved on without me, and that's okay. And my brother was in 3 times as long as I was. So when he got out and he came back, it was an even bigger culture shock. And you can think about it. If someone's in for 3 or 4 years, they're going to experience a shock, and that shock is going to be amplified for someone that's been in for 10 or 12 years. It's crazy to think about that transition, right? And if you don't know your role and you don't know your place and you have trouble holding yourself accountable, you can go down a very dark path that I went down, and like I've said, a lot of veterans have gone down. 22 veterans a day killing themselves is a very serious issue. So veterans, this part is for you. You gotta hold yourself accountable as if you were still in when it comes to doing the right thing and holding yourself to a standard. It's hard. I didn't do it for probably my first 3, 4, or 5 years out. I was in a real rough spot. And it wasn't until I started my own business that I really understood how much I needed to hold myself accountable to create some semblance of mental stability and happiness and really enjoy my life instead of turning to alcohol all the time. We have to hold ourselves accountable. All right, we got to figure out who we can trust. And if you can't trust or be close with and depend on the friends that you had before you went in, you might need to back away from them. Another thing, you got to find someone to talk to. Now, whether that's a counselor or a family member or your parents or a really close friend that will listen to you without judgment, you got to be able to get some of these things that go through our heads. You got to get them off your chest. I mean, it's rough. If you just bury it deep down inside, you start to go into this negativity spiral. It's a dark place, and I was there, and you have those thoughts that those 22 guys a day have, and hopefully you never follow through on those thoughts, but I've had them, and I know other guys that have had them. And the thing that's in common with a lot of these guys that didn't follow through on those really, really scary thoughts is that they hit that rock bottom point and they didn't want to be that person anymore. So they finally went and they talked to someone and they sought help. Once they got help and they started to talk about some of the things they were going through, they started to feel better and learn how to create happiness for themselves. And it's tough because we come from a world where it's so ego-driven. You're unbreakable. You have no emotion. Everything's logic, right? You aren't supposed to feel. You just go. People have to respect you and do what you say because of the rank that's on your uniform. And this world doesn't work like that. No one gives a fuck that you served. Yeah, thank you for your service. Cool. I appreciate when people say that, just like I'm sure other veterans do too. But if people in the United States really, really cared and really wanted to thank us for our service, they would probably find a way to take action and demand a system that helps veterans transition out of service to lead more successful lives, or to help us feel better in some way. Or maybe not just judge the fuck out of veterans when they have some anger issues or depression issues. But that's the thing. Most of you that aren't veterans, as much as you say you care, and as much as you thank us for our service, what are you really doing to demonstrate that gratitude? What are you really doing to show thanks? Be there for your friends that served. Be there for your family members that served. Listen without judgment. If you have a veteran that's a friend or a family member and they trust you enough to talk to you about some of the things going through their heads or some of the experiences that they had, listen without judgment. Let them know you love them and you care about them and you're there to help them. Because everyone needs help. The toughest people I know and the toughest people I served with still need help. And it takes a long time for any of us to get to that point where we can acknowledge it. And it's a hard, hard road to travel. But none of us can succeed on our own. Just like when we served. No one does it on their own. The tough thing about when you get out is finding the people that you can assemble as a team around you so that you have that support system to make sure you don't go down that deep, dark path. And those of you that haven't served, be a part of that team. You can't be afraid to be there for people you love, because that's an issue too. Is people are scared to talk to certain veterans because they're intimidated, or maybe they respect them so much they don't want to cross a certain boundary. But if you're scared to cross that boundary, the easiest thing to do and say is, hey friend, or hey brother, I want you to know if you ever have anything on your mind or you have something you want to talk about, I want you to know I love you and I'm here for you. I'm willing to listen to you without judgment. I can help you. Because sometimes that's all it takes, is being willing to listen without judgment. So, if you ever served, know that there's ways to find help. There's always a way, but we got to admit, we have to kind of push our ego away a little bit and just admit that we need help too. Just like we needed help when it came to learning how to clear rooms or learning how to use a different weapon system. We need help. And those of you that never served, you can still be of service to service members by being there to help them and showing them that you care with your actions and the person that you are every single day. Show them that you are grateful by being a productive member of society. Care for people, treat them right, hold yourself accountable, hold yourself to a standard even though you don't have to. Do the right thing. It's tough to figure out what that is, but you can do it. Once again, there's help out there for all of us. We just have to make sure we're either helping or we're willing to admit when we need help. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below so we can create a dialogue, so we can further progress this conversation. And if you haven't done so already, click the link below to like or subscribe to our channel. I got a little long-winded, but there was a lot to it.